This is a journey to better health, and this is our staff you can see right here, and I'm going to actually show you where the testimony of my life started and why this journey began. My wife and I were married in 1982, and a year later, she's pregnant, and a lot of responsibilities. We bought a new home. There was a lot of stress in our life, and we didn't know how quite to handle it. I was really successful in business. In just 3 years, I'd be getting into a management position with my company, and it was a lot of stress for a young guy. And so health started to decline because I didn't know how to take care of the body. I was a chief of sinners. All the stuff we're going to talk about, I probably did it the worst of anybody in the room here, so don't feel bad about anything we talk about. But God calls people like yourselves and mine to a calling like this. We'll tell you more about that. So Amy and I have Jason, our son, and they had told me that I was going to be in a wheelchair. I had severe pain that would debilitate me. I'd lay in bed at night and moan, and it just couldn't make the pain go away. I was watching the clock to see when I could take my next medication to make the pain go away. But I didn't understand what the source of the pain was. And so that journey began as I went for diagnosis, and the doctor said, you have ankylosing spondylitis, and here's what happens. We can give you therapy. We will give you medications to manage the pain. There is a possibility for surgery, but usually not, and you'll end up in a wheelchair, maybe in your 40s or 50s. And so I walk out of that office, and there was hope that came. I wasn't a Christian at the time. I was not a believer. I believed in God. I hadn't been born again yet. And so I walked out into that parking lot that day, and I know God's Spirit spoke because it was Scripture, and I didn't know that until later. He said, seek out a way. There's a way. This is from Isaiah 43. God will make a way where there seems to be no way. So I didn't go back to medicine. I didn't go back to that system. I started searching. Amy was a little bit distraught about it. She's like, well, why don't you just do what the doctors say and you'll be okay? And God just drew us, and we both became born again over the process of searching for health. You know, when you're broken and you're hurting, you're going to search for answers. And we found answers, and we found God in the midst of it. And the Lord just led us down this path to have 7 grandchildren. And we're just blessed with this family. And of course, out of that sprung the Nutrition and Health Center. And what we're sharing with you is a building process of what we call the Health Freedom Institute, education for believers. So part of that testimony was I come home after receiving a prophetic word as a baby Christian in the late 1980s. It'd been about 6 or 7 years down the road. And I share with Amy, I got this prophecy. This guy, he said I was called to be a teacher and that we had a small business and God wanted to use it. Well, at the time we had a nutrition business. And this is some stranger from faraway land, right? Amy's quiet and she looks at me. She says, God wants you to teach nutrition to the body of Christ, to believers. I said, oh, honey, that sounds boring. I don't want to do that. Even though we had a nutrition business part-time, isn't it funny that here we are today? God said, yes, I've called you to this. Even though you were the chief of sinners, I want to use you through that sin and show you have a better way, and I'll lead others in that too. And so just the process began. Crazy things happened. Each week I'll share a little bit more about what God did to put us in front of television cameras and on the radio, and it's wild stuff, and just exploded. And guess who walks through our doors? 95% of our clientele are Christians. And they heard about us through this or that, and it's God's calling for us to walk in abundant health. I'm about to share some things about statistics. So this is for you now. You're going to analyze, what are your health goals? Are you seeking to have more energy, to be thinner, lay aside every weight, the scripture says, right? It doesn't slow us down, right? Have more sex drive. Read the Song of Solomon. We need a little bit more of that in our lives. We want to be stronger like Samson or Daniel or Moses, or how about Caleb at 85 goes to war on top of the mountain. So we want to get our belief system out there to look for something stronger and bigger. So we're going to talk about what cholesterol is and that we shouldn't just throw a medication at it, why it's important to understand what cholesterol does in the body for making hormones, how to sleep better. He says, I give my beloved sleep, doesn't he, in Psalm 24. Would you like to improve your memory to remember things better? There are certain things that interfere with mental function. We're going to talk about those in processed chemicals in food. To lose weight and never need to diet again. And you can see we're living that example. And we want you to think back, well, when I graduated from high school, what was my weight, or college? I'm going back there, and it just happens. It's just a process of this. So it's about making better choices. It's about knowing what to do and making good choices that are part of everyday living, you know. There's a choice over there on the counter in that box I noticed. It's got a little bit of sugar. It's got probably some things in it we don't want to talk about. But here's an example of that as well. Eating is the biggest cause of disease today, disability, and death. In the U.S. today, 2 out of 3 Americans die each year from eating habits, according to the study. Now, for me, the inflammatory process, I've learned what poisons me. And so if I go back to that lifestyle and cheat too much, I cheat a little here and there, get away with it. But if I cheat too much, I'm reminded. Pain comes back, stiffness, soreness. Oh, I don't want to go back there. I mean, it was scary to think of that debilitating condition. So food is information. Eating is information. This life-giving food from God has some 220 chemicals in it. An apple does. And it speaks to your DNA. You're telling your cells what to do with that information, and it's going to maintain abundant health and keep the thriving going, or it could cause a degenerative process. If it's chemically processed and it doesn't have any life in it, then there is an inflammatory process that takes place, and disease of all kind is triggered by inflammation. Inflammation within your body. So chronic disease is a shift away from a whole foods way of eating. Intensified agricultural cooking, food processing created what we know today as the standard American diet, which is sad. It's sad, isn't it? It's the way we're living. But we've decreased our omega-3 fatty acids. And we're going to get to talk about this more. But these are actually involved in lowering inflammation, fatty acids in the body. And in our book, The Trinity Diet, if some of you don't have a copy of that, we'll send you a free e-copy of that if you would like that on the sign-up sheet. A shift in the acid-alkaline balance to remove the chronic acidic load that tears you down. And interesting, this inverted sodium-potassium, you may not understand that, but the balance of your cells needs sodium and potassium, and too much of one or the other can be a problem. Too much sodium in processed food, but potassium is in a lot of your green foods, your rich foods, your bitter foods, your leafy foods. So food from that which was sown, which is what Daniel ate. In Daniel chapter 1, when they came to him to feed him while he was in captivity as a young teenager, he told them he wasn't going to eat their processed rich foods of the kings. And he said, test us and we'll prove to you that we eat pulse, or food that which is sown. Now we aren't propagating vegetarianism, although as Daniel did it for a period of time, it is beneficial. Maybe not for all the time, but it does provide a benefit. And after 10 days, they were stronger, they were wiser, and it was a test that proved by changing their sodium-potassium ratio, even though we didn't know it in that day. But inadequate fiber content. We have fiber-rich foods that scrub the colon, clean out toxins, and also suspend sugars and slow their uptake. So the fiber-rich food is important. The glycemic load you may have heard of, or the glycemic index of a food, is how sweet it is or how rapidly it elevates your blood sugar. And we want to use the foods that are low in glycemic load. And then loss of micronutrient density. And there are many, as I mentioned, you probably didn't know there were more than 220 chemicals, natural chemicals that God put in an apple. And there are many more that we don't even understand what they do. So we just have to trust God, right? Because he put it there. And we need more of it, and it just brings life to the body. So we're going to talk about first-line therapy. What is it? First-line therapy is a healthcare practitioner's approach to delivering lifestyle medicine. This is where people are going. They want to know what lifestyle medicine is. It's about our lifestyle. Lifestyle medicine is the therapeutic use of evidence-based lifestyle interventions to treat and prevent lifestyle-related diseases in a clinical setting. This is our little clinic here today and for the next 6 weeks. It empowers individuals with the knowledge and life skills to make effective behavioral changes that address underlying cause of disease. So as it says in Exodus, none of the diseases will come upon us. for he is the Lord who heals us. Jehovah Rapha. So first-line therapy is a type of lifestyle medicine, supporting lifestyle change with a targeted approach to each individual that enrolls, that we'll talk about today, delivered by a trained healthcare professional. That's us and my lifestyle educators that are here today, Amy and Shauna. We're going to focus on 3 pillars every week, okay? The first pillar is healthy eating, a modified Mediterranean food plan. What do you know about the Mediterranean? Well, Israel, God's promised people, right? We're given this diet. It's a God diet, and we're going to get into the Mediterranean diet and target it specifically based on individuals and blood types and chemistries and talk more about that. Each week, we'll talk about something about food. We'll also talk about living, how we're dealing with stress. We have a stress assessment. We have stress formulas, herbs that God created you can become a part of, utilizing good sleep habits and how we can accomplish that. Of course, our leisure time. Are we taking enough time off to relax? You guys are good about allowing Pastor Steve to get his time off. And physical activity. This is important. We only get a glimpse of it in Scripture, right? In 1 Timothy 4:8, exercise is good, but godliness is better. Everybody focuses on the godliness part, but everybody goes, it's because they don't want to exercise. It's 2 4-letter words put together. I don't want to deal with that. But it's important, and each week we're going to bring something about exercise, cardio, strength, flexibility, and balance. So these pillars each week, remember, 3 things: healthy eating, healthy living, and physical activity. So first-line therapy is the solution to transforming lifestyle habits. That's all it is. Simple, but more parts to it. We're going to focus in the eating part about phytonutrients in plants. You may have heard of things like resveratrol in wine and in grapes, and healthy animal and plant proteins. There are healthy proteins to choose from an animal. We encourage that. Healthy quality fats or high quality fats, low grain, low gluten, low glycemic carbohydrates, and then using specialized medical foods, which you probably all became familiar with, the medical foods that Metagenics actually donated to the city of Houston, and Houston Northwest got to be the pillar to help deliver it to you guys that suffered from the flood, as well as the community. So it's been a real blessing, and we'll talk more about how to utilize medical foods for a specific function of detox or inflammation control or gastrointestinal restoration and more things beyond. So dealing with stress, we'll focus on the healthy living each week of sleep, stress, leisure time, and more effective coaching. And smarter goals. I don't know if you guys use the SMART goals here. We'll get into that with lifestyle. And then last, of course, physical activity, cardio, strength, flexibility, and balance. This quote from Dr. Mark Hyman, he's a medical doctor that has actually got the message right. He says, nutrition, exercise, and stress management can no longer be called or considered alternative medicine. They are essential medicine. It's like Hippocrates said, the father of medicine. Let your food be your medicine and your medicine be your food. So can lifestyle medicine change the healthcare of today? There's a lot of information that basically says the cost is through the roof on what is happening in America. And I won't go through all these details because of time here, but look at the obesity rates in the United States. So if you're ready for this, there was a study done. So some of the states as high as 35% obesity. You can go onto the cdc.gov and you can look at these charts and see the progression in the last 20 years. A lot of technology that's taken our children from the playground to their playground is now their bedroom with their computer toy. They're no longer being physically active. And we have so much more prevalence of fast food. Now in Houston, we have more women that are working than any other city in the United States. And because of that, we have the most amount of restaurants per capita than any other city in the United States because women don't like to come home and cook. Although we teach a lot of food preparation principles that are real simple that you can do when we get home. And my wife does a great job. It's fast and easy and it doesn't burden her. I make sure I clean up the kitchen so she's ready to go again the next time. But the church was studied. Dr. Ken Farrow at the University of Purdue did a study, a big difference. Purdue University did a study in 2007, and he said that religious people are more obese than the standard Americans, and the Southern Baptists have the highest obesity rate of all religious groups in the study. Oh my God, that's us. So we are going to make a difference. And it's starting here. This vision for health freedom is starting here at Houston Northwest. Look at what happened and what God is doing to raise this church up completely. 1 Thessalonians 5:23, not just our spiritual and emotional life, but our physical bodies to be preserved so we can run the race to win for him until the Lord comes again. So cardiovascular disease, cancer, diabetes account for nearly 2 out of 3 deaths in the U.S., primarily caused by unhealthy lifestyle habits, about $700 billion a year. This is the only numbers I had from 2003. I just pulled this slide up to give you an idea of the cost. Now, none of those dollars are going to our family because we don't get medical treatment. We don't need it. We're well. We do well care things. We do smart things. Although Amy had a trauma to her knee and needed some physical therapy, but we used Samaritan Ministries insurance, and that supported us in that, and so she was reimbursed. But lifestyle medicine is not just about preventing chronic disease, but also about treating them often more effectively and less expensively than relying on drugs and surgery. Nearly all major medical societies recently joined in publishing a review of the scientific evidence for lifestyle medicine for both the prevention and treatment of chronic disease. Let's use an example of a gallbladder surgery. A client that we did a gallbladder cleanse. We call it an Exodus flush, and we're going to make that available to you. It's actually in our book, because God tried to use some things that were in Exodus, some bitter waters at Marah, for the people to drink, but they rebelled. So Marah became referred to as the place of rebellion, or bitter water. And so the bitter waters have rich magnesium salts. Well, magnesium will loosen stones that are in the gallbladder. So this gal had come in, we had done a flush within the office, and she actually passed gallstones, coming in with a terrible headache. It was the pain medication she was on that was triggering it. It was causing congestion in her organs. Cleaned her out right there in the office within an hour. She passed the stone. She came out of the bathroom 2 or 3 times in that hour because we were administering some herbs and some of the bitter waters. And she said, the toilet was just full of some green stuff. What was that? And I said, well, you probably just purged your gallbladder. She said, my headache's gone. I mean, she was crying in pain when she came in as a strong lady. But this same lady, years later, went back to her bad habits. Like we can all tend to do that, right? So I get this phone call from the emergency room. They want to take her gallbladder out. And she's wearing the apron, getting prepped for surgery, and she just got this revelation, oh yeah, we cleansed my gallbladder out before. Let me call Steve up and see if he'll do it again. And so she walks out of surgery with the surgeon yelling at her. Of course, he's missing out on time and money there. What are you doing? You're crazy, and this and that. And she cleansed her gallbladder again and still has it. And she now, because this so dramatically impacted her, if one of her friends is in the hospital for something she thinks may be unnecessary, she'll go to the hospital and she'll check him out and she'll bring him over to our office. It's a crazy lady. But so it's not about disease management, and we don't manage disease. We don't even treat disease, because as believers, that's not in our realm, right? We're not going to focus on disease. We're going to focus on what's lacking and edify, exhort, and build up. 1 Corinthians 14. Repair what's not working well, because a cut heals, everything else will heal too. It did for me. When they said there's no positive outcome studies on that disease, you're going to end up like everybody else does. In fact, a young gentleman at 28 years of age, when I was 50, 9 years ago, came into our office, and he had been being treated with ankylosing spondylitis for many years. And they had him on these meds, and we told him, you can do this. I did it. But they chose not to do it. It was too hard of a road, they said. Matthew 7 says it is a hard road. The narrow road is hard, and few will find it. Few will do it. It's work. But as a team, as a group working together, that's how we get the momentum and get the work done and encourage one another to do this. So most physicians lack the time, information, technology, and financial incentives to develop organized processes to systematically improve the quality of care provided to the patients. There is a large gap between what physicians do for the patients with chronic diseases and what should be done. So in addition to hypertension, the manifestations of lifestyle syndrome include metabolic syndrome. obesity, dyslipidemia, which is elevated cholesterol and triglycerides and such, cardiovascular disease, cancer, osteoarthritis, depression, sexual dysfunction, and type 2 diabetes mellitus. So these are all treatable naturally and reversible God's way. So you can see this curve of what's traditional. This was what happened with me in my early 20s. Health started to decline, probably more rapidly than what's shown here, but I was able to bounce back and live a more abundant life. Now you can see the decline on a healthy lifestyle starting to fall in the 70s and 80s and 90s. But my dad, who lives this pretty well at 83, plays golf and still beats me at golf. And also when you get on a elliptical machine, he'll say, all right, put it on level 10 and let's see who can get the most calories burned. And so he beats me on that too at 83 years of age. So extremely energetic, wears you out to be in the room with him. And that's how we want to be, like Caleb was at 85. You can do that, except the mentality of what's happening in America is we're not living long-lived lives because we're believing the system and then being treated with synthetic chemicals and decline then ensues. So in focusing on blood sugar, we're going to deal with blood sugar balance, which is important because the cell uses sugar. It loves sugar. It wants sugar for energy. And so we can reverse the sensitivity to the resistance of insulin, lower the hemoglobin A1Cs. How many of you heard of type 3 diabetes? This is what they're referring to Alzheimer's now. Scientists now call Alzheimer's as type 3 diabetes, and people with diabetes have a 4-fold risk for developing Alzheimer's disease. Even prediabetes or metabolic syndrome, people have a reduced cognitive function. So focusing on blood sugar, the brain uses a lot of sugar. The cells in the brain need 10 times more sugar than the cells in the rest of your body. So balanced blood sugar is important. That's why God put Adam and Eve in a garden. He knew that they would have something to look at and grab all day long, and they would be grazers. And as mammals, we should be like a sheep or a goat or a deer or a buffalo or a cow. When you see them, they're eating constantly. And so we should graze. That's why I always have a cooler with me. It has snacks in it. And I'm grazing and eating to reverse disease and maintain health. So lowering elevated lipids, lowering blood pressure, increasing our good cholesterol, which is actually produced in the body. If you don't eat anything with cholesterol, as Pastor Steve found out, that cholesterol keeps going up. How does it keep going up? Because your body's producing it. Every hormone in your body is made from cholesterol. We should raise our right hand now and swear that we're never going to take an anti-cholesterol medication, because since Jesus made your body produce cholesterol, then anti-cholesterol meds would be anti-Christ then, right? Theoretically, yes. So let's think positively. How do we manage or increase the production of good cholesterol? We're going to teach you those things. Lowering body fat, increasing muscle mass, and lowering waist circumference. So the American College of Sports Medicine Body Composition and Health says, what does the number on the weight scale really mean in regards to overall health? Weight is not nearly as important as the composition of weight. So we're going to use this device. We have it set up in the back room, and those of you that sign up today, we're going to tell you what this entails. You don't have to sign up. You can attend every week and get the education. But we're going to do these bioimpedance tests at the beginning and at the end, and Amy's going to share next week the winners of the biggest weight loss and the biggest fat loss. We have 2 winners receive prizes, and they're significant prizes. So we're going to measure our BIA, and then we'll give you this report. It'll tell you, well, where is my energy phase angle? How much cellular water do I have? What's my body fat? Am I holding on to toxic water? And then we'll do a before and after. There's 2 tests provided in this next few weeks. And this is a lady that implemented our first line therapy program, Gwen, at 52% body fat in 18 months, lost 113 pounds. And this is Pete. I put 3 pictures of Pete up because he gave me 3 pictures. This was his first picture at 455 pounds. And then I didn't see Pete for a long time. And I get this amazing testimony letter, which you can read it on our website. And then I get this picture. So this is the first picture, and you see how the arm is kind of dropped down, and then you don't see much of a bicep. It's kind of flat here. So he said, well, this is where I thought I should start exercising. I mean, he did this just on the eating plan, right? And didn't lose muscle, lost fat and extracellular water. And then 1 month later, oh yeah, he's got an arm, he's got some bicep and shoulder muscle showing, and he's holding it up there because he's stronger and more vibrant. He was so moved by what happened in 1 month of exercise, he said, I'm going to send you another picture. So there you have it, Pete. So these are the things that we're going to, for those that enroll, we've got a particular guidebook. It's called the First Line Therapy Guidebook, provided by Metagenics, and First Line Therapy is a trademark. We follow this system, and we're making a part of Health Freedom Institute and making it biblical, because this was God's idea in the first place, and so we're giving it to him. It's his. And so if you enroll, you get the guidebook, 2 of the tests, personalized menu plan, personalized professional supplement recommendation based on your chemistries and some of the questionnaires you fill out. And of course, the 6 weeks lifestyle education, we're going to be here doing that regardless. It's a $100 enrollment. And if you want to sign up, over here on the table is the sign-up sheet, and then we've got a testing place in behind Alan's office where we'll test as soon as you guys get your meeting kicked off at 2 o'clock, so you can sign up for a time slot. It takes 5 minutes. One of you can leave, come back, and just take turns on coming out of the room. So then next week, on January 16th, again, we're going to focus on these 3 different pillars: healthy eating. In this first chapter of the book, it's the First Line Therapy way of menu planning. So those of you that actually know what your BMR is, and some of you do in the room here, that's your basal metabolic rate, we'll develop a menu plan for you. And some of you can kind of figure that out if you're not doing the testing of what may be ideal for you. The physical activity, each week we'll talk about a different type of physical activity. Sean and Amy both are actually certified fitness trainers, and so they can bring a lot of truth to the what you want to know about fitness. And then the healthy living, setting the smarter goals, dealing with stress, stress management, and then we'll give you the availability of some online support that we can connect with you and give you education there as well. So it's an exciting 6 weeks coming up starting next week, and we did it in 30 minutes. Thank you.